WrestleMania 9 is one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. I'm not going to sugarcoat that for you. The general consensus amongst wrestling fans is that this event is in the bottom 5 of all time. Now that is due in large part to the ending of the show, which saw Hulk Hogan beat Yokozuna in less than a minute for the WWF Championship that Yokozuna had just won from Bret Hart. People were not just talking about Hulk Hogan's triumph over the evil Yokozuna though. Instead, there was considerable interest drawn to Hogan's left eye. Now, the story that has been told for 30 years by even Hogan himself and several peers is that the Hulkster suffered a black eye due to a jet ski accident while catching some waves with his best friend, Brutus Beefcake. While this may be the story that is widely accepted, there is a conspiracy theory associated with this incident, and I am here to present to you that theory on this edition of Wrestling Uncovered. The theory that Macho Man Randy Savage punched Hulk Hogan in the face over a dispute involving his wife Elizabeth shortly before WrestleMania 9 in Las Vegas. Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage were the two biggest stars in pro wrestling during the height of the golden era in the late 80s and early 90s. Their stardom and their place in the WWF all came crashing down thanks to a combination of several factors. The derailing of WWF's momentum at the hands of WrestleMania 7, more to come on that in a future video, children growing up and being interested in different forms of entertainment, and the steroids trial. The WWF in years prior had featured comic book character-like stars such as The Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude. By 1993, gone were the days of overly large physiques. By this time, Vince McMahon had implemented a new generation in WWF that featured smaller wrestlers like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels at the helm. Hulk Hogan found himself desperately grasping to hold on to his star power and relevancy come WrestleMania 9. Vince McMahon was nervous to run a WrestleMania event without Hogan on the card, which was the original plan. Hogan used his leverage knowing that Vince needed him to be involved and decided that he would do a tag team match with Brutus Beefcake, but only if he won the WWF title at the end of the show. The Hulkster showed up on Raw during the build-up for the show and formed a tag team with his buddy, good old Brutus Beefcake. Their team name would be called the Mega Maniacs. The tandem wrestled the duo of Money Inc., Ted DiBiase and IRS, the father of the late, great Bray Wyatt. Rest in peace. Moment of silence. Suspiciously, the Mega Maniacs did not win the match. What makes this suspicious, though, is the fact that the tag team titles were on the line. Surely Terry Bollea would not be returning to the WWF to not capture gold, right? Well, of course not. In the main event of the evening, the mighty Hulkster would make his presence felt. Bret Hart was the WWF champion going into Mania after beating Ric Flair for the belt the year prior. Yokozuna had won the 1993 Royal Rumble and earned the right to face Hart for his title in the main event of WrestleMania. Yokozuna was set to defeat Hart and kick off a new reign in a new era as the top heel in the company. This was the plan until the Hulkster was brought back into the fray. Once the Hogan got to sniffing around, he pitched to Vince that he'd win the belt, and Vince agreed, allegedly telling Bruce Pritchard that Hogan must pose, pal, to end the show. The WWF was not going to close out the biggest show of the year without Hulk Hogan on top, and boy did this turn out to be a disaster. Yokozuna and Bret Hart wrestled a solid match to close the show, during which Yokozuna defeated the Hitman, claiming the WWF title in the process. However, during the match, Mr. Fuji had blown salt directly into the Hitman's eyes and gained an unfair advantage that helped Yokozuna score the pinfall. Have no worry, Hulk Hogan was here to ensure justice for every man. The American hero could not allow such injustice to Bret Hart, so he came out to check on Hart. And what did Hulk do? Did he tell the ref to overturn the result of the match in favor of Bret? Did he have the ref restart the match? Did he beat up Mr. Fuji? No. All he did was check on Hart until Mr. Fuji challenged Hulk Hogan to a match with Yokozuna right then and there for the belt. And boom, Hogan hits the leg drop and gets the 1, 2, 3, brother. So let me get this straight. Let me recap this for you guys. Bret Hart loses his WWF Championship after he gets screwed. Then Hulk Hogan comes out to check on him. And Mr. Fuji's like, here, man, have a championship match. You earned it, pal. You came out here, you walked down to the ramp, and you checked on Bret. You earned a championship match. It's so silly. That was it. WrestleMania 9 had closed out a lackluster show with exactly what Vince wanted. Hogan posing for the audience in what is arguably the worst main event and worst ending to a WrestleMania ever. Most people were, rightfully so, upset at this decision and did not find WWF all that interesting anymore. This era was built up as the new generation and symbolized moving on from Hogan, but instead here he was at the top again. Vince had promised Bret that he would get his win back versus Hogan in a marquee main event at the 1993 edition of SummerSlam, and in typical Hogan fashion, he changed his mind on that deal and opted to instead drop the belt to Yokozuna at a significantly less interesting King of the Ring pay-per-view. Now that we have all that out of the way, let's get to the conspiracy theory at hand, shall we? As I said prior, for years and years following this event, people became enamored by the fact that Hulk Hogan wrestled at this event with a very visible black eye. Just how did Hulk Hogan obtain this black eye? Now, the story, as I mentioned at the top, is that he broke his orbital bone during a horrific jet ski accident at his house in Tampa, Florida, while filming Thunder in Paradise, a truly awful but, I guess, funny film. Hogan and Brutus Beefcake recall the story in great detail. Bruce Pritchard does as well on his podcast, Something to Wrestle. Many question this jet ski story and actually believe that Hulk Hogan got his black eye from Macho Man Randy Savage. The story goes like this, and parts of this story was documented during A&E's biography about Randy Savage, that I would personally call a hit piece against a person that is not here to defend themselves, rather than a documentary. Hogan tells his version of the story, minus the fight of course. Hogan and his family had been in Miami, Florida on the set of said movie, Thunder in Paradise. Miss Elizabeth, the wife of Randy Savage, had been with them after she packed her bags and left Randy overnight. Elizabeth and Hulk's wife Linda were real good friends at the time, and the four of them would often hang out. Allegedly, Elizabeth called Hogan's wife and asked if she could come to stay with them, to which the Hogans obliged. Elizabeth was gone for something like 10 days, and Randy was absolutely livid, losing his mind trying to find his wife. As Randy put it, he finally reached Elizabeth on the phone, and she told him that she wanted a divorce, and Savage went to the hotel in Miami where Liz was staying with Hogan and his wife. Hogan alleges that he saw Elizabeth with another man earlier in the day when Savage arrived. Savage showed up in Hulk's hotel room. Infuriated, and Hulk got Savage, the manager of the hotel, and found Elizabeth's room. Randy busted through the door and began yelling at Liz, and a few minutes later there was, quote, 40 cop cars outside. This is all Hulk Hogan's recollection of things, as he stated in the A&E hit piece that they did on Macho Man. He also claimed that he ran as soon as Savage saw Elizabeth. But did he run? Perhaps could Randy Macho Man Savage have dished out a blow to Hogan's face that would give him a black eye just days before his final WrestleMania appearance in almost a decade? Jim Cornette seems to believe that this is the case, along with a lot of other wrestling personalities and fans. On an episode of his podcast, The Jim Cornette Experience, Cornette claimed that this is indeed what happened, and he thought everyone knew that this was just a story. He was surprised to hear about the jet ski accident and just wrote it off as one of Hogan's many lies. In contrast, Bruce Pritchard claimed that he has never heard the story of Macho Man punching Terry Bollea, and that the jet ski accident is the only version of the story that he knows. Bruce Pritchard, who was actively lobbying for a job back within WWE and was successful in doing so, would have an incentive to lie about and protect a story of this nature on his podcast. But what incentive would Jim Cornette have to lie? He is the most successful wrestling podcaster in the world and does so without any affiliation with WWE or any other major wrestling company. It is an interesting, fascinating story that has yet another wrinkle to it. Scott Steiner recalled once during a Q&A that he saw Macho Man confront Hogan before a show over the incident involving his wife, and that Hogan tucked his tail and ran from the fight because he knew Savage would kick his ass, according to Steiner. So, in this case, who is lying here? Steiner certainly has no reason to lie, as he could have benefited perhaps from telling a more interesting story of the two icons exchanging blows. What I do know is this: Macho Man hated Hulk Hogan for many years prior to his death, and they only made amends shortly before Savage's death. According to Hogan, they saw each other at the doctor and shook hands when Savage forgave him for all the things Hulk had done to him. Here is perhaps the reason why this conspiracy of Savage punching Hogan exists. In Hulk Hogan's recollection of things, after the jet ski accident left him with a broken orbital bone and a black eye, the Nevada State Commission had to test Hogan. He did not, of course, want to be tested for several obvious reasons. So Hogan says that he told the doctor that he obtained the black eye after a wrestling angle on Monday Night Raw when Savage beat him up and the black eye was all makeup. Now do with that story what you will. To me that story sounds a little bit silly, but I can see someone who has never watched wrestling before or still thought it was real would believe Hulk Hogan telling them that the black eye was part of the show. But would a highly trained professional doctor representing the state of Nevada believe that and just let Hulk Hogan go? I'm not too sure about that. Celebrities do have a lot of pull among people though. I mean, he is Hulk Hogan and it was the 90s. Now, no matter what side of the fence you sit on, this is another instance of how the backstage events of wrestling can be more interesting than what happens on screen. I am curious, so now please tell me, what do you think happened? How do you think Hulk Hogan got that black eye before WrestleMania 9? And that's it. That's going to do it for this episode, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Have a great day. Peace.